afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another webinar from Jolly Learning. And we're very excited to share some new products with you today. And today we're going to be looking at the folktale readers and the phonic handwriting books. But before I move on to that, there's a few things I want to share with you. And one of the things, did you know, is we never mention enough that Jolly Phonics is a validated phonics program. And if you want to know any more about that, please pop us a line at jollylearning.com.uk and we can have a look, but also go to our website to see our validation and all the case studies that we have to support this. And also on our social media, whoops, what's happened to Instagram? Instagram is Jolly Learning. So we'll correct that. That's popped off. But please look out for us in social media. There it is. It's playing up with me on a Tuesday afternoon. Please check us out on our social media. And also, if you have any queries about training, please contact me and I'll be very happy to tell you about all the training options that we have. But let's go into what's in the session. And I'm delighted that we're able to explore the contents of the folk tales for decodable readers and also the handwriting books. And what we will do is keep the questions to the end. If there's small little questions, one might be able to ask the two presentations before we get to the end. But if it's a long question, please write it down and we really look forward to answering these questions about any of the contents or what you'd like to know about them. But small questions I will answer through the webinar. So let's meet our presenters. And of course, we have the lovely Sarah Wernham, who is joining us, and Jenny Windle. First time for you, is it, Jenny?
Yeah, first time on a webinar. Yeah,
first time on a webinar. Of course, we have Sarah. And how are you today, Sarah?
Very well, thank you, Very.
Yeah, and so we're going to be starting with Sarah, who's going to be talking about the new folk tales. And again, we'll have a little break before we go on to Jenny, just in case you have a few questions. But more importantly, please let us know anything you want to know and your feedback. So, Sarah, I'm going to pass over to you. And it's all yours now, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Right, so for this afternoon, here in slightly damp and grey UK, we're talking about folk tales from all over the world. So I'm just going to, as everyone says, there's always a moment when you share your screen and wonder if it's going to work.
Oh, they look absolutely amazing, Sarah, don't they? The covers, really bright and vibrant. Yeah.
The folk tales are a new series that we have just published as an addition to our existing range of readers. And I am actually going to start by just saying a little bit about our readers and decodable readers, because that's a very important part of being a synthetic phonics scheme. So, as I hope you all know, Jolly Phonics is what we call an SSP, a systematic synthetic phonic scheme, whereby we teach the children the sounds and the spelling patterns associated with them in a particular order that makes it easy for them, or as easy as possible, smooths their path in learning to read English, because unfortunately English spelling is not regular. We've got a lot of alternatives and other things that make life difficult. So as I say, what we do is that we teach them certain spelling patterns to go with the sounds that we can hear in words. And then we would be very silly if, having gone to all the trouble of worked out all these patterns and ways of teaching them and the structure of it, we then just gave them books that had any old words in, any old spelling patterns in. So what we produce to run alongside the programme is a series of decodable readers. Now, what happens in these decodable readers is that the children get to practice the alternatives and the spelling patterns that we are introducing to them. If you do not do this, if you do not use decodable readers you're using, what happens is the children get very confused because you've told them that this is how you make an A sound, whatever it is, and they've practiced reading words. But then you've given them this book, and there are all sorts of different spelling patterns and things in there that don't necessarily follow what you're teaching them. So they either get confused, or the other thing that often happens is they start guessing. And we do not want the children guessing, because actually what we want them doing is reading the words that are on the page. So we have to make sure that those words that are on the page are decodable for the children. So that's why we have decodable readers, and we have our main scheme of decodable readers, which have, well, we go up to purple. Currently, purple, little sneak preview here, but I'm hoping that we're going to have a purple level next year. And then, which will, take us up more or less to all the spelling alternatives that we have introduced to the children at that point. But we have sort of 3 sections. We have 80 books per level and 3 sections. One is a non-fiction or the phonic set, so there's 6 of those in each. Inky, which are tales connected to Inky Mouse and various other characters within the series, and then Snake, which has other stories, including, as it happens, some folk tales and fables and things. So the children work their way through, and this will help them to become confident and fluent readers, because we're never asking them to do something that we haven't taught them how to do, or we know that they can do it. So as I say, we've got our basic readers that have been out for a while now. And then a couple of years ago, last year, we added the Our World readers to the series that we have. Again, through from red, yellow, green, blue to purple level. Each of these has a theme. So red is music, yellow is sport, and that. And that, again, broadened out our reading scheme, because the original 18 per level are great, but that's not enough. At this stage, they need loads and loads of practice at reading and loads of little books. So we brought out the Our World readers, which are real life, and they've got the photos, as you can see. But there is still plenty of room for more readers. So this year, we have introduced our folktale readers. I've done some of them, but not all of them. The lovely Louise, who works in the editorial office, has written some. And then we also had a guest author coming in and working with us as well, which was a nice experience to bring other people. So folk tales are lovely. There are folk tales from all over the world. Folk means of the people. And they are stories that often have a moral, not always, but often, or they reflect on life and how to live it successfully, properly. Don't know what the word is. And they often have themes connected to things like kindness, courage, intelligence, to overcome issues or problems that the characters in the stories face. Folk tales are stories that have been passed down through the generations, often orally, so just retold. So therefore, every time somebody retells them, or somebody different retells them, they add a bit to make it more interesting, or to make it more relevant to where they are living. Okay, so these tales have developed over time. They probably didn't have a single author, but every time they've been retold, they may change a little bit. Even those that are attributed to a particular author, like Aesop's fables, every time they're retold, and they've been retold thousands and thousands of times, people add their own little bits in. Folk tales are often things like fairy tales, legends, myths, tall tales. So not necessarily reflecting the real world or fables, okay? They often have some sort of magic or, say, this sort of tall tale idea where the usual rules of the world or the life or the universe don't necessarily apply. So you read some of them and you think, oh, how ridiculous. But actually within the world of the folk tale, it all works and it's fine. And they are absolutely brilliant stories for children to read. So, as I say, again, we're broadening our reading scheme out. So there are 6 readers for each level. So that's another 30 across the reading scheme, which is a nice addition for you to add in and for the children to read. They have come from all over the world. So they come from various Asian countries, so Japan, India, China. We've also chosen European folk tales, again, as you can see, coming from various different places in Europe. African folk tales. South American. And of course, North American. So we've tried to cover as far as we can. We had a slight problem when it came to the Oceania folk tales. There is a movement that has grown up within Australia, particularly in the Aboriginal people, that they're not that keen on outsiders retelling their stories, which they regard as part of their cultural heritage. So though we did originally look at some of the Aboriginal tales, we haven't actually included them for that reason. But we have got a tale from a South Pacific island called Vilia, which is a small island out there, to represent that part of the world. So as I say, a complete range and a range of the different places within each level. So it's not like red level is all from India or somewhere. And the artwork in these is absolutely beautiful. A number of different artists and illustrators. And Louise went to great trouble to try and get illustrators that would reflect the feeling of the different places that the stories had come from. So these are just a few pages, as you can see. As I say, to try and reflect the sort of art and the background and what is connected to that part of the world. As with all our books, on the back cover, it tells you a little bit about the reader, and it tells you the levels and the different books that are within that level. So that information is on the back cover. And again, as always, we have a lovely illustrated front cover, which is one of the illustrations from the book. Inside, again, as per usual, on the first page, on the inside cover, there is some information about what the children should know before they are given these books, and a lovely illustration with all the sight words and the different alternative spellings that they should know before they get this book. And you can have a quick check through with them if you want to. And then again, as per usual, at the back of the book, there is a little panel with some information for teachers and parents, a little bit about that particular folk tale. So this one says it's a Creole folk tale from southern United States. And what you find is when you start looking at folk tales, you find that you've got the same story, but with slight variations, but coming from different places in the world. So these stories have obviously been spread, but again, as I say, they've been adapted and changed and made relevant to the place. So this story about the talking egg has got a very similar story to a French fairy tale about toads and diamonds. But again, you can identify themes that run through them when you start reading the very rich history of folk tales that we have. Then you've got some comprehension questions and then some what do you think questions to get the children thinking about what they've read, because we don't just want them repeating the words, we want them to think about what they're reading and to have some ideas about what they've just read. And sometimes when you talk about something, you get a much better understanding. So our red levels, as I say, selection from across the world. The fork tricks pantslers South American, the capsulus from India. Rock broth, sometimes called stone soup, is again a very well-known folk tale. The King's Cheese is a story from India, and this is what we call a sort of circular story. It starts off, he goes through a number of processes and ends up back at the beginning where he started, really. The yellow level, we've got the story of Chicken Licken, which again is quite well known. Some of them are less well known, but it doesn't matter. We've got a story about Anansi, the trickster, who comes from sort of Ghana and West Africa, but was taken across to the Caribbean. So he is a folktale character that spans part of the globe. And the happy rabbit comes from Mexico. And again, he goes along swapping things, and you get to the end of the story. The Emperor and the Seeds is interesting. As I say, there's often a moral in some of these stories, and the Emperor gives out some seeds, and in fact, he's done something to them so they won't grow. So he gives them to the children and says, whoever is going to brings me back the best tree, is going to take over from me. So when the seeds don't sprout, all of the children except one substitute a tree that has grown, except for the one little boy who comes back and admits that his seed didn't grow. So the Emperor knew he was truthful, and he was brave to come back without the tree. And so he said, you are my successor, you are the new Emperor. Green level, the Gull and the Raven is actually sort of an extract, because some fairy tales, some folk tales are quite long and quite complex, particularly for children this age. So Gull and Raven is just an extract from a much longer story, but it's fine, it works beautifully. Stan Bolivar and his children, it's a lovely story, and how he tricks a dragon into believing he is much stronger than he is. The Chatty Tortoise is a very well-known story, as are the Singers of Bremen. Domingo's Cat is probably slightly less well-known. That's another South American one. But they're all really interesting and twists and turns in the tales of them. And as you can see, like the Clever Jackal, that's an African one, and you can just tell that from that illustration, from the colours. So they are lovely. The Chatty Tortoise has got those beautiful ones reflecting its sort of Indian origin. Blue level, another 6. Again, the Fox and Crow is actually a take on an Aesop's fable. As I say, a lot of them have been retold many, many times. and they're told slightly differently each time, and that's actually fine. And again, a lot of these stories, as well as reading them, it's a great idea to get the children perhaps to retell them as well in story time, or if you're sitting in a circle or whatever, or you've read the book or they've read the book, because they're really good stories to develop language and understanding, story structures, and getting them to retell things orally, because these stories were originally told orally. They weren't written down. They've only been written down in more recent times, which is a good reflection of the storytelling stone, where the young man goes and sits on this stone, which starts telling him stories, and eventually runs out of stories. And then he tells him that now he knows all these stories, it's up to him to go around the world, or to go round where he lives and retell these stories to the other people and the other tribes. So that's a nice link in with the whole idea of the folk tales. And the two frogs live on either side of a mountain. Does that sound familiar? There's lots of stories where on one side of the mountain, the other side of the mountain looks fabulous. And on that other side of the mountain, they look back and, oh, that's a much better side of the mountain. And I'm sure, as you'll probably know, when you get there, it's not that the other side is better at all. So folk tales are great because they have lots of morals and things in them. And then finally we come to our purple level. So we've got a North American, a Native American story about the Bear Clan, which again, we're doing the EAR air at purple level. So that's repeated lots in this book, and how the old man who doesn't look very well, and he goes to get help, and some people won't give him help. So he moves on, and then eventually an old lady in the Bear Clan takes him in and looks after him, and he teaches her all about the herbs that are needed to heal people and to treat people. And the Bear Clan then have all that knowledge because they were kind to this old man, and the other tribes don't. So they have to come to the Bear Clan in order to understand what's been going on and what they need to do. How the yams came to Earth, as I say, is our oceanic one. That's lovely, completely ridiculous. He fires arrows at the moon, and he fires another arrow, and the arrows all stick together. And then he climbs up the arrows and he finds a man in the moon who's eating yams. And then he brings some yams back down to the earth because they're so delicious. So I say, these folk tales often have a sort of sense of ridiculous in them. The same with the sweet porridge, where the pot keeps on cooking and the village gets flooded with porridge. And then we've got some more, which are sort of ones with a moral, really. The tax collector, who obviously, because all tax collectors in stories are mostly always corrupt, and how he gets tricked and shown up for his bad ways by some boys. And then the elephant and the rain spirit. The elephant is very boastful, and again, he gets shown up, and it's nice. There's always good and evil. There's often good and evil in these folk tales, and good does always prevail. And then the last one in the purple level is the elephant's friend, which again talks about or reflects on the theme of friendship, and the elephant befriends a dog, which then gets sold and taken away, and was very sad, but in the end they get reunited, and how important it is. You can have all the wealth, the elephant's well looked after because he belongs to the Sultan. He's got all the food and everything else, but what he really wants is his friend, because friends are very important in the world. So, as I say, that's a very quick trip around our folktale readers.
Sarah, I'm going to
yeah.
interrupt. I'm going to interrupt you here to ask you just a few little questions. You and I are great believers in books having more than one value, which is they're not just for reading. We can use them in many other ways, can't we? We can use them for vocabulary, we can use them for questions and comprehension. And maybe you'd like to highlight a few tips for teachers about using the books, because if you've bought them, there's so much you can do with them apart from their main purpose.
Absolutely. As I've already said, you can use them to do oral retelling. I'm just trying to stop my screen share and it's not letting me currently.
Okay.
But if someone else could do that, that would be great.
Okay, I'll be working on that for you.
Yeah, we can, as I say, because they come from an oral retelling tradition, then we can use them in that way. So you can get children to retell the tales because they're very conducive to that. The beautiful, fabulous, I think we've done it.
Yeah.
The beautiful illustrations. Again, you can look at the beautiful illustrations and get the children to copy them, to look at the different parts of the world, to find out about the different parts of the world where these folk tales come from. And then again, you can extrapolate the themes from them. Like I say, the elephant and his friend, the dog, but, talk about friendships. So you're then moving on to sort of personal and social issues. Is it right to steal from people and the morality in the world? So they contain a huge number of very important ideas and reflections. And you can write your own versions. Like I'm saying, every time they get retold, they are slightly different. The children can retell the stories we've got, or they can, sometimes sort of rejig the stories and make them slightly different. So lots of things you can do with them.
And one of the great things that we've done with them is using them as our base for creative writing, because when children have a story, it's far easier for them to build on that story for creative writing. So these are just brilliant, and using the visual cues to help them with that is a really good foundation as well. And somebody mentioned about teacher guides. Well, you have a lot of information in the books about how to use them to support children who are emerging with their reading. But also, you can take a lot from the teaching notes and also the program on how to use the foundation of these books to help in many other ways. I mean, Sarah, you and I have used the books to find initial sounds, tricky words, punctuation, and possibly with grammar looking for verbs, because these books you can go back to. And children love going back to resources they've used in the past.
And as I say, we have within the tales that we've chosen, as well as getting us spread across the world, we have chosen ones where the particular alternative spellings and things that they should be learning and working on are in there. So in the purple level, let's say that you've got the EAR for the air, for the bear clan, you've got the PH saying F in the elephant. So they have been carefully structured and worded so they will support the phonic work that you're doing as well. So again, look for the words with a PH in, look for the words with an EAR saying A in it. Look for the other ones that are on the particular level that you're doing, the hop over E words or whatever. So they do reflect your other teaching as well. So you can use them to reinforce that.
Yeah, they really are a wraparound resource to support not only the core of the program, but also help children with their vocabulary acquisition, the fluency of their reading, but more than anything, that they're making sense of everything that they're learning. Isn't that correct, Sarah? We're giving them something that helps put all those 5 key skills in place.
Absolutely.
And And we'd say don't rush ahead. If you've got a child who's reading really quickly, they might be doing it for production, but we also want to make sure we have comprehension. So as a teacher, asking questions, simple things like tell me 3 things you liked from that story. That's not an excessive task for young children. 3 things you'd change, 3 things you like, or write 3 sentences. So,
And the more the children read and the broader they're reading, obviously the better their understanding and the better their reading becomes. I often liken it to when people learn a musical instrument and you take grades. Now, actually, you can progress up the grades by playing 3 pieces per grade, but that doesn't make you a great musician.
No.
Because really you need to broaden out what you're doing and get as much experience as you can and play as many pieces as you can. And the reading scheme is a bit like that. You've got your central core with your Inky, Snake and Phonic, which are lovely, and you will do okay by progressing up them. But the wider and the broader and the more experiences and the different books we can get the children to read, the better they will be.
And another thing that I would say is they're great for cross-curriculum themes as well. Parts of the body's colors, emotions, social emotional learning. How do you feel about the person, PSHE, and also all this vocabulary that the children can be using to add to the books. And we've got a lot of questions about where the books can be found. There's an e-commerce site that I think we're putting information in there on where you can source the books and the program. And I think, Sarah, it really is a wonderful addition to the program. And
I'm just going to answer a question I can see. That yes, the red level correspond to the red level in all the others, the red level Our World, the red level Folk Tales, the red level in the original series. They all are at the same level. They use the same phonic spellings, alternative structures that they have.
Yeah, and Stella, thank you. Yeah, they can be used for role play, and that's a great way for children to be editing, taking out the key sentences in the story. I mean, there's so much you can develop from one book. And Martin, thank you for joining us today. Pricing. I'm sure that we'll be able to put in there about the pricing. That'll be on the e-commerce store or the website. Yeah. So anything else you'd like to add, Sarah? I mean, we could go on all day about the books because we love using the books. We're a bit boring that way, aren't we? We
In
love
order,
them.
because I was doing this today, I sat there last night and read them all, and they
Yeah.
had a very good evening.
Yeah. Thank you, Jolly Community, for joining us. And we are always open to your ideas and suggestions for webinars and what you'd like to hear more about. And again, we are very appreciative of anything you'd like to share with us. So thank you for sharing your time this afternoon. And thank you, Sarah and Jenny. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. And bye for now. And have a wonderful afternoon.